it's my absolute pleasure and honor to invite one of the most important leaders in the world of marketing globally. He is Stephan Loerke. Stephan, welcome to this episode of Quantum Marketing Sense Live. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Roger, for having me.
Very much appreciate, Stephan. So, World Federation of Advertisers, or WFA as it is called, is I would say, the most preeminent organization for marketers, for the brand owners. Stephan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the collective membership that you have got of literally all the who is who of the brands and all the advertising associations from around the world, they all have membership to WFA and they actively participate. And I would just ask you to comment in a second about what exactly WFA does and what it is. But it's important to understand that this organization is doing some extraordinary work. And I have had the privilege of partnering with Stephan over the last few years. And I serve currently as the president, which is an honorary voluntary role that I'm doing in addition to my day job as Chief Marketing Officer of MasterCard. So, Stephan, if you could just sort of state what exactly does WFA do, that will sort of ground our viewers into what exactly you do and what's the relevance and why you are here on this particular episode and why it makes a lot of sense. So, if you can just tell about WFA first, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you, Raja. So the World Federation of Advertisers is the global organization bringing together brand marketers. So only brands, not agencies, not consultants, not publishers, not platforms, only brands at a global level. And we do two things for our members. On the one hand, we do advocacy, so helping champion the interest and the voice of brand marketers with international regulators, with the World Health Organization, OECD, UNICEF, international organizations, European institutions, etc. Increasingly, advertising is at the center of many policy conversations. Think about privacy, think about public health, think about climate change. So that's one thing which we do. And the second pillar of our activity is work with marketers, such as you, chief marketing officers, but also such as some of your colleagues, global heads of media, global heads of marketing sourcing, to help them become better, more effective, and more efficient at what they do. So we do benchmarking, we do best practice exchange. These are the sort of two main activities of WFA, and we have a purpose as an organization. So building on those two main activities, our purpose holds in two words: better marketing. So we're helping promote an industry that embraces rapidly changing societal aspirations and better aligns marketers with what citizens, consumers, and society are increasingly expecting from us.
Awesome. In fact, I have personally and firsthand witnessed, both while being a part of WFA and its governance, and before that, as a marketer, and the kind of work that WFA does is absolutely stellar, and the kind of momentum that it generates. At one estimate we have seen is almost $1 trillion of marketing spend goes through the membership of WFA, which is nothing to be scoffed at. It is pretty gigantic. Literally, the entire marketing industry is represented through the WFA. So, Stephan, how did you come to be the CEO of WFA, and that you're a very successful one? If you can just outline what your journey has been hitherto, that'd be fantastic to just get an idea.
It's been quite a journey, Raja. I'll start from the very beginning. I'm actually the son of a French mother and a German dad. I grew up in two languages, speaking in German to my dad and French to my sister, brother, and mom. And so I've been an international citizen very early on. I was born in Germany, grew up in Belgium, studied in Switzerland, worked in the US and in France before settling in Brussels. So call me an international citizen, a world citizen probably. I've always had two passions. One is international relations. I'm fascinated to try and understand how societies evolve and how they live together and how those dynamics operate at a geopolitical level. That's one passion. And the other passion is actually people. As a marketer, I'm actually fascinated to understand people and how you can compete in the marketplace and outcompete your competitors and succeed in reaching consumers. And so my journey has been business administration studies, and then L'Oreal for 11 years in marketing roles, starting as a sales rep, product manager, group manager, marketing director, and head of business unit. And one day I meet a headhunter, and that headhunter asked me a question that headhunters usually don't ask, which is, what would be your dream job? Now, usually headhunters ask you, would you want to do the same job for 20% more salary? This one asked me, what would be your dream job? And I was sort of taken by surprise, and I responded very spontaneously, very authentically. One day I'd like to combine my two passions, international relations, understand society if you want, and marketing. And I think there's an important interface there that isn't sufficiently looked at. And the headhunter called me back 6 months later saying, I think I've got your job at WFA. And that was 20 years ago. And ever since, the way marketing has evolved and the way marketing now intersects with society, those two fundamental passions actually come together in what I do.
Which is absolutely brilliant. I guess very few people can say what they are pursuing is truly their passion, and that's what they have accomplished, which is not just in a theoretical way, but in a highly pragmatic. You're living that reality day on day. And I think the impact that is being created by WFA is a testimony to that passion of yours and how you act on it. Now, probably more than any other individual, I can clearly say this: you speak with the most number of CMOs around the world, and in these conversations, what comes to you when they look at their future, when they look at the industry's future? What is at the top of their minds right now?
Look, I think it's fair to say that these are challenging times. For every single CMO that is actually working with us, for every product category, these are times of incredible change, of uncertainty, of volatility. And so I'm actually picking up that CMOs are being challenged on three levels, if you want. One is, call it economic pressures. The fact that increasingly there's an expectation for marketing to do more with less, and for marketing to be accountable. The days where you were purchasing GRPs and heads of proxy metrics in order to be justifying spend are definitely over. The second thing I'm picking up is technological demands, and so how as a marketer, how's a marketing organization, do you get your head around what matters and what is a shiny new object that may not be as significant as it appears to be? So how do you bring that into the marketing organization, and how do you build that into your strategies? And the third one is consumer expectations. Marketers are are facing this tension of short-term results, because most of them are subject to quarterly results, and at the same time doing the right thing in terms of brand building, and most importantly, respond to increasing consumer demands to do the right thing longer term, whether that's on diversity and inclusion, whether that's on climate change, whether that's on data ethics. And these sort of longer term aspirations are requiring investments, and they require longevity. And so there's a short-term, long-term tension that CMOs have to manage. I think these are probably some of the biggest challenges which I'm picking up from marketers today.
What would you say? So it's basically economics, technology development, and short-term versus long-term are the three biggest things that are occupying their minds. Now, in terms of opportunities, what are they feeling optimistic about? What are they feeling that this is something to look forward to seize, to take advantage of?
So first of all, I'd say I would challenge the notion that a challenge is actually a threat. Sometimes there's this shortcut, Actually, marketers thrive on challenges. They thrive on change. And so as I sort of describe what I'm picking up from CMOs, I think many of them see those as opportunities to stand out. For a marketer to succeed, for a marketer to stand out, you need change. You need an opportunity to be faster, smarter, better than your competitors. So I think this rapidly changing environment in a way creates conditions to stand out and to win in the marketplace. I think it's also fair to say that even if these are very uncertain times, the overall prognosis for next year, as far as I'm picking it up, and again, want to be very humble because we all know that a variant can make a big difference in a very short time. But I'm picking up that the growth forecasts are relatively bullish still today, both for the US at almost 5%, the Eurozone at 4.3%, China at over 5%, India at 8.5%. So the overall GDP forecast growth are still very significant. And then I highlight also one thing that is sometimes missed when we consider things in our industry. When you look at the bigger picture, you look at the Edelman trust parameter. In these incredible times we're living, many institutions have taken a big hit in terms of trust. You know, think of media, think of governments, even NGOs. Business actually stands out in terms of level of trust in the latest Edelman trust parameter of 2021, because it's perceived to be competent and, at least for some, to be ethical. And so there is at least an opportunity for brand marketers to move into spaces where in the past they haven't been heard. Think about diversity, inclusion, think about climate change, etc. So there are opportunities for marketers to embrace those changes. And I think these are certainly among the opportunities which I'm picking up in conversation with CMOs.
Got it. And in fact, it's pretty fascinating. You know, if you look at the consumer spending as an example, we have already surpassed the spending levels pre-COVID already. So consumers are spending big time, and it is growing across multiple categories. Of course, anything related to travel, particularly cross-border travel, was under stress. But the point is that there is a lot of bullishness in terms of, and even unfortunately, Omicron has put a little bit of a dent in the momentum, but still there is optimism, there is bullishness, and I hope a lot of good investment will come back right into marketing. Now, last 2 years, I think, have shown what volatility could be and how things are so dependent on the kind of crisis that can happen. So it was a health crisis, it was an economic crisis, it was a crisis of confidence. There were so many crises that were all coming together. Now, as you look at 2022 and beyond, what is your prognosis? How does the future look like?
Look, I'm not going to take my crystal ball, but I'm going to share my intuition. Yeah. So I don't believe in this concept of return to normal. I don't think there's going to be any return to pre-2019. I think that the pandemic has been incredibly challenging for many of us, personally, professionally. But as always, in times of crisis, there are always upsides. There's always stuff that you learn on the way, that you're forced to be, adjusting and adapting quickly. And some of those are actually positive. So I don't think there's going to be a return to normal in that sense. I think we're going to be building on a number of things which we've learned during the pandemic. I feel, and although I'm not a virologist, but I feel that COVID is probably there to stay, hopefully in a manageable manner. But as far as I understand, and I'm being told, we need to be factoring that in, that COVID is going to be a virus that's going to be with us for some time, hopefully in a much more manageable manner in terms of vulnerability of individuals, and hopefully with medication on its way, etc. But we need to be factoring in that this is going to be with us. And then I think that the pandemic has been an accelerator of many things that are going to be shaping 2022. When you think about movements around diversity and inclusion, and certainly turbocharged by the Me Too movement. When you think about COP26 and the realization of the vulnerability of our planet and brand marketers' responsibility with respect to help find solutions to that. But also closer to our industry, when you think about how e-commerce has actually transformed many business models. I was reading an article yesterday, with citing figures, that the US e-commerce penetration in 3 months' time has accelerated the equivalent of 10 years. And speaking to many of our corporate members, we have lots of FMCG companies which historically had something like 5 to 10% of their businesses, which were made on e-commerce, which have moved within 12 months to 25, 30%. So these are going to be clearly opportunities for growth as we come out gradually of this moment of crisis. And I think they're going to be shaping the agenda of marketers in 2022.
Got it. So in fact, if you look at, and I agree completely with what you are saying, it's very much in line with what I have been either hearing, reading, or in discussions, that's what comes up. The areas of gaps, if you were to focus on that for a minute, whether it is the lack of trust or the trust deficit that is there, or the safety and security issues, not just for brand safety security, but societal safety and security. Is internet a safe place or not, and how the consumers' privacy is protected or not, and marketing not just being a force for growth of their companies and brands, but also being a force for good, something which creates a positive impact. I think this is something which is a profound and a tectonic and probably an irreversible change in the world of marketing, and I'm totally there with you. Now, in this kind of an environment where the sands are shifting at an ever-accelerating pace, what is the role of an industry association? Most of the people, when you talk of an industry association that is not for profit, people yawn at it. But from having been associated with WFA and what tangible stuff it does, and how significant the developments and movements are, it'll be great if you can just articulate a little bit as to what is the role of these associations going to be in the future, from a marketer's perspective and a marketing craft perspective. And if you can share any tangible examples, in addition to the philosophical approach, of the kind of things that an association does, and in this context, specifically WFA, because most of the times marketers do not understand and appreciate enough of what these industry bodies are capable of doing if you only know how to leverage them. Mm-hmm. And so it just articulated that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so actually the pandemic has actually, for us too, be a huge accelerator, because for two reasons. One is CMOs, even CMOs of the most successful brands, and I would count MasterCard, I would count L'Oreal, Coca-Cola, Unilever, and many others in those, are facing uncharted waters, and many didn't even ever plan for a situation like the one we're witnessing. And so what they get from us by being part of our forums is an ability to connect with their peers, hear different perspectives on the same challenges they're perceiving, and learn faster. In a way, it's a fast forward type model whereby you can actually leverage the collective experience of your peers in order to find your way faster. The times where a proud CMO would all do it himself or herself back in their headquarters, those times are past. There's the scale and the speed of change is such that there's a need to be able to rely on a network of peers in order to learn faster. And that is true for CMOs, but it's true for all the different marketing roles which are represented in WFA. That's a very tangible benefit. And to your question, can you give a sort of concrete example? Now, when the pandemic hit in March 2020, CMOs were wondering, what are we doing with our creative? What are we doing with our campaigns? Now, how do we pivot? What is being expected from us, from consumers? How do we manage our media mix? And these were clearly occasions where they were able to pick up what their peers were thinking and how they were approaching it in order to get there faster. So that's a very concrete example of how the acceleration of marketing and of tech and society in a way is actually making our services more important than ever. There's another dimension which is going to be increasingly important in the future, and so as we look into the future, and that is the fact that increasingly, to the point I raised earlier, society has expectations. People have expectations with respect to brands that go far beyond producing a good and safe product or service. There are expectations with respect to changing the way diversity and inclusion is being dealt with in our industry. both in front and behind the camera, or leveraging our collective weight to help move consumer behavior in a manner that is more sustainable, given the need for the planet to be cutting drastically its CO2 emissions. These issues are bigger than the biggest of our members individually is. They can only be solved if you collectively come together and build a program. And so just to mention a few, we have the Planet Pledge, which we've launched recently, which aggregates brand owners which commit to be climate neutral by 2050, and which commit to leverage marketing to change consumer behavior in order to accelerate that change. Or we've set up the Global Alliance for Responsible Media in dealing with platforms in order to help raise the bar in the way we protect brands from harmful content. So these are just examples where, at a macro level, there is a need for brands to come together to respond to those expectations with respect to the industry rather than with respect to individual brands.
In fact, Stephan, let's sort of focus on one and dive in a little bit deeper, if you're okay. Now, one of the issues or one of the topics you mentioned is GARM, or the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, right? And if you can just walk in a little bit deeper in terms of what is this thing all about, and why is it even necessary? Why should I, as a marketer, care about it? And if you can just give some texture, because not everyone might be familiar with it. And also, I think the point is it's already created some tangible outcomes, which probably no individual brand, irrespective of its scale, would have accomplished the kind of stuff that GARM has accomplished by bringing all these marketers together, aggregating their, literally, I would say, their influence, and bringing it to fore to make a change that is good for the marketing community and good for the consumers at large. If you can just dive in a little bit more deeper into GARM, that'd be great.
Yeah, happy to, Raja. So the background is the issue around platforms and what we call brand safety. You know? So we've had, over the last 3-4 years, a number of high-profile cases where brands advertising on platforms suddenly appeared next to content that were actually unacceptable from a brand's point of view. The first big issue which hit the headlines, you may remember, was in 2017, the Times of London, front page, household brands such as City and Hyundai, etc., appearing next to ISIS content on YouTube. That was the beginning of it, yeah. Of suddenly brands realizing, oh my God, actually we're present on platforms, but sometimes we end up next to content that is absolutely unacceptable for us as a brand. And for 2-3 years, there have been very genuine and authentic efforts to try and find solutions for individual brands. And platforms have tried to find bespoke solutions to make sure that none of those brands would ever be confronted with that in the future. And it didn't work. It didn't work because the solutions were bespoke. They didn't have the scale of the industry. Okay, they were simply too complex and they were too fragmented. And that's when WFA decided to launch the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, recognizing that this is an issue that confronts us all in the industry. Advertisers, agencies, and platforms, we're all in it together in the same boat. And when you think about it, advertisers are the ones who fund the platforms. 98% of revenues from Facebook are ad revenues. 75% plus of revenues of Google are ad revenues. So there's a direct responsibility, in a way, of brands as they advertise on those platforms to make sure that they don't end up unintentionally funding harmful content. And so we came together collectively under the leadership of brands, saying we need to raise the bar. And we need to raise the bar in 4 ways. Yeah? One is we need a common definition of what harmful content is. And that definition needs to operate across all platforms, whether you're Twitch, TikTok, Google, Facebook. We all want to speak the same language, so that a brand is able to connect in an accountable fashion with platforms. And we've achieved that last September. The second thing is we need KPIs that are consumer-centric and that matter to brands. And that is around prevalence and incidence of harmful content. So we need to be able to have data which reports to us on the amount of harmful content that is seen by people on platforms, so that we can gradually track whether we're doing progress or not. The third one is we need measurement that is harmonized, so that we have a measurement reporting at intervals that allows us to track that. Finally, there is this third-party auditing. The data we've been working with so far has not always been audited by third parties. Sometimes it has been just reported by platforms. This is so essential for the ad industry and so essential even for outside stakeholders that the data we work with needs to be audited by third parties. And we now have a calendar of commitments with dates by which those different platforms will be audited by third parties. So this is a very short snapshot to say that, in a way, we've created a framework that allows small, medium, and big advertisers to work with their agencies and with platforms in a manner that is consistent, and to create accountabilities in the end between the brand and the platform in terms of where an ad ends up on the platform.
That's so profound, meaningful, and important at many, many levels, right? So when you're talking about the KPIs, having the common definition of harmful content, measurement that is harmonized across the platforms, and the third-party auditing, I think they're incredible. But for example, when you're referring constantly to platforms, I'm saying these are essentially the social media and the digital platforms that we're talking about, right? And has it been an uphill journey to get to where we already are? Or was it something just a meeting of the willing people and then the rest of it was all magic?
Let me describe that as creative tensions. Yeah, it hasn't been a walk in the park because it's a total uncommon collaboration. We never set up something of that type. It was clearly a demand from brand owners. You may remember that it was initiated by the executive committee meeting back in April 2019 in Lisbon. So it was a clear mandate for us to shake things up. But I must also acknowledge that platforms, after initial hesitations and back and forth, have actually embraced the model and have been good partners in progressing it. And so this ongoing collaboration has been I'd say successful and let me be clear also in bringing that accountability to the digital ad market. Now, many of those who watch our interview will have in the back of their mind all these allegations they've heard of, which to a large extent fall outside of the digital ad industry. But specifically when it comes to digital ad market and the way we're removing incentives for monetization of harmful content, it's fair to say that GARM has made significant progress.
No questions about it at all. Now, looking at the other important initiative, and I think it's a phenomenal initiative, and I was pleasantly surprised with the level of momentum you already got traction for. This is the Planet Pledge. Now, two questions. Firstly, why should WFA even get into the Planet Pledge kind of a situation? And what is the need for the marketing association? Because you don't normally think of a marketing association launching an environment and sustainability kind of an initiative at the global level. That's number one. And number two, if you can share in the last few months since it was launched, what kind of traction you already got and where is it going forward into the future?
Yeah, so why Planet Pledge? Why would a marketing organization like WFA start an initiative that seeks to accelerate the reduction of CO2 emissions? The answer is simple, because I think that the climate challenge is going to be the mother of all battles of our society in the next years. I'm not talking about next 10 years, the next years, no? And it will fundamentally transform the environment in which brands will be competing, in which brands will be connecting with people, in the way people will make choices about brands. So deciding to ignore it and possibly win 1 or 2 more years is certainly not certainly not a way forward. Now, we haven't been great. Let's be very honest, Raja. As an industry, we don't have a great track record in embracing societal challenges. We've tended to actually remain silent and then respond once we're in the corner and being pointed at. And we've tended to be a bit more defensive in the past on some of those societal challenges. Just think about food marketing in children and etc. There have been a number of cases where the industry has been late in responding, or just think about data privacy. Industries tend to be defensive and late. This is a different thing. We feel that if we embrace it now, not in a defensive manner, as a way to project ourselves into the future and the way we can win with consumers in a manner that is sustainable and works for society, that this is an opportunity. And that's how we mobilize CMOs. The climate agenda is not a defensive agenda where you get the lawyers to handle it in your company. It's an agenda where we feel CMOs need to be leading in-house, because that is about the future of the world in which the brands will compete. And it's for the CMOs to bring the outside in. It's for the CMOs to see where in that new environment are the opportunities to outcompete and to be building business. And that's how, so we want that proactive, positive agenda. And we think that actually marketing communications can be a huge accelerator in that overall effort to become climate neutral. And I was at COP26 2 weeks ago in Glasgow. Was my first climate summit ever. Well, if you told me that a year ago I would ever go to climate summit, I would say no, probably not. And so I met all sorts of stakeholders, activists, NGOs, academics, politicians, and they were looking at marketers in a positive way. They were actually asking more of us, and that's a huge opportunity for us to be on the front foot here. If we decide just ignore it, it's not us, I can assure you that in 3-4 years' time, it's going to come to us, because there's no way brands will continue to be able to operate like they've operated now, ignoring the climate agenda. And so that is why the Planet Pledge is actually bring together brands which see the opportunity, and we have some of the world's most respected brands. We have Unilever, we have IKEA, we have MasterCard, we have Mars, Mondelez, so many of the world's most admired brands and CMOs who are actually seeing this as an opportunity and want to drive change in-house by training their marketers and by producing the best in class in demonstrating how they can change consumer behavior. That is really the point of the Planet Pledge. We've launched it 6 months ago. We're growing fast in terms of signatories. And most importantly, we've got 24 national associations. So the Canadian, the Brazilians, the French, the Brits, the Japanese, who are actually leading the Planet Pledge at the local level. We want to scale. We don't only want the biggest, we want also local brands to sign up to it. The entire purpose being that we gain scale and momentum as fast as we can.
Which is brilliant. Normally, when I said people yawn when you talk of purpose, because unfortunately there is so much amount of lack of credibility, because it's seen as a purpose washing, or in this case, like greenwashing. But this is anything but. And when you talk about so many advertising associations from different countries joining in to make a difference from this grassroots level point of view, and when you're talking the large brands, more than probably 25, 26 brands, companies which have already signed up in a big way, that's something which is real momentum, and in a short period of 6 months, which is fantastic. Now, along the same lines, you just touched upon data, Stephan, and data is a huge concern. As much as it is a blessing for marketers to get hold of data, to be able to understand who the consumer is and what's the right communication that you have to give, and what time, what context, and so on. There are obviously privacy concerns from the consumers. They feel spooked. They feel that the practices of marketers many times are creepy, and regulators are stepping in. You've got GDPR, you've got CCPA, you've got all kinds of stuff coming. So how is this being tackled? Obviously, as an individual brand, I cannot go and keep fighting with the policymakers around this, and WFA steps in there brilliantly. Can you just shed a little bit of light on from a policy perspective, particularly around privacy and data security and all this? What is WFA doing?
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right to start with the consumer, with people, no? Because sometimes in our industry we get upset with what is perceived to be over-regulation or overzealous regulatory intervention. But let's start with what really matters, and that is what people think. And according to a research run by Microsoft in 2020, 64% of consumers feel uncomfortable about the amount of data that's collected about them. And 50% of consumers feel that they don't have the choice. Okay, that's the reality. No? So we can have all sorts of theories about the future of data-driven marketing. If consumers aren't bought into what we do, we'll have an issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just one more figure, 17% of consumers feel that tracking their online activities through third-party cookies is ethical. 17%. Okay, that means 83 probably don't think so. So we have a real consumer issue, and therefore we shouldn't be surprised when we hear of regulators in Singapore, in Australia, in the EU, in Brazil, in California stepping up and passing legislation that limits the collection of data and the way data is being collected. It's not entirely surprising to be hearing of platforms such as Google, which announces deprecation of third-party cookies. So you have, in a way, three key players which are actually actively changing the game of the future of data-driven marketing. Is you consumers, you regulators which intervene, and then you have platforms which, through their policies, have a de facto global impact. Because when Google changes its policy, it impacts Botswana, Mongolia, UK, Russia, and the US at the same time. You know, and so that's basically what we are facing. Which means that we as marketers need to be thinking about how do we connect with people in a relevant manner, in a timely manner, while doing that on terms that are acceptable to them. Okay, that's the equation we need to solve. We don't have a vested interest in the digital ad ecosystem. No, if third-party cookies are being deprecated, no, that's so be it. You know, what we're interested in is to find a way to connect with people in a manner that is relevant and acceptable to them. Getting that balance right. And it's still early days, but I can tell you that many CMOs, including you, are actually actively, screening the different options that might have a future, including, Flock, which is the privacy sandbox of Google, announcing a technology that's going to be built on cohorts rather than individuals. So it's not going to be personalized, it's going to be anonymized. However, it will still offer a very significant level of relevance to marketers in order to know who you connect with. There are, of course, there's also interest in first-party data strategies. It's more challenging for some than for others. In the case of MasterCard, first-party data is something that is available, which, given that you have a direct connection with your consumers. In the case of fast-moving consumer goods companies, it can be more difficult, but first-party data will become increasingly important. And then there's predictive targeting. That is something companies are starting to work on. That still needs to be confirmed in terms of its ability to deliver on its promises. And then there's contextual, going back to contextual without working with any data. So we're really at the crossroads here. It adds to the uncertainty which we talked about at the beginning of our conversation, and it's going to be clearly something that is going to be a defining moment for the future of our industry. But I do think that brand owners here have a role to play in getting the digital and shaking up the digital ad industry and making sure that the way we connect with consumers in the future, in the end, is sustainable.
Yeah, in fact, if you were to connect this with the earlier point that you made about the economic pressures that marketers are under, obviously it's going to be a nightmarish situation if you cannot retarget consumers, if you cannot understand them deep enough, and now you're aggregating or you're looking at only context. The effectiveness is going to be probably dilute. We don't know if there are better ways of how to actually solve this. But on the other hand, if each country on its own starts bringing regulations, and if each platform decides on their own what they're going to do by way of what they will allow on their platforms, what they would not allow, it's going to be quite a complex situation for marketers to navigate. And no marketer would start off saying that I want to actually harm the consumer, I want to leverage them, I want to take away their data. That's not the intention. But if that's what the consumer's perception is, that's a reality that you have to deal with. What their perception is what our reality is. So from that perspective, there is a lot of stuff that needs to be done in this space. And really, I think the associations, particularly in this context, the play and WFA being the most preeminent one, it's extraordinary. Now, I would love to continue, actually, pick these all up at a future conversation, Stephan, because I know we are already past the 40-minute mark, and I don't want to take up any more of your time right now. But if you're open to it, I would love to have you again to have part 2, if you were, of this particular conversation, and to get into more areas, because literally I have got about 8 or 9 areas that I want to deep dive further on, because this is profoundly meaningful and something which more marketers need to be aware of, participate, in this kind of, whatever be the body that they are a part of, or if they are not, how do we integrate the efforts across the entire industry to make it most productive? But thank you so much. As usual, you're very enlightening and very, information. Your information stuff is fantastic. The stats that you're spewing out and the insights are really insightful. Thank you very much for that. And I look forward to speaking again with you soon. So thank you so much, Stephan. And to audience, I hope you have found some value in this whole conversation. And I would definitely promise you will have a second conversation at a future date with Stephan, and would like to dive deeper into each one of those areas. And if you can send me your questions or the topics that you want to go more in depth, we can go broader, or we can take 1 or 2 topics and dive as deep as you would want. If you can let me know, I would really appreciate that. Again, thank you so much for your attention. Stephan, thank you again. And all of you have happy holidays, stay safe,